The children of Egypt are like my work cell phone, a phone that you have to cut off in a meeting because it's not a smartphone. It doesn't have airplane mode. We have to cut it off. Sometime it doesn't even ring because it's out of range. It's a cheap flip phone. Verizon, by the way. There might be hours or days where I won't pick up the phone or even turn it on. But as soon as I hit the power button and I turn it on, about 60 seconds later, I get 3 email messages, 46 tweets, 14 messages, and 14 Facebook messages. Israel has been out of range for 490 years. And they got reception at the Passover. They switched to 3G when they were trapped at the Red Sea. And now they upgraded to 4G at Mount Sinai. They were out of range in Egypt, and they thought that God didn't see them. They thought that God had forgotten them. But he began to tweet in secret in chapter 1. He sent some text messages in chapter 2. And he sends an email to Moses in chapter 3, and he CCs the elders of Israel. And they finally get the memo in chapter 4 when the Bible says, when they hear that the Lord was concerned about them and had seen their misery, the Bible says they bowed down in worship. They finally got the message. Aren't you glad that God communicates with us when we're out of range? He's been sending messages all of the time, and by the time we realize it, when we're back in range, we think that we're actually returning the call when we get on our knees in prayer and worship. But he's been sending messages all along. The song says, God's mercy kept me so I wouldn't let go. I'm here today because he kept me. We're alive only because of his grace. When we're out of range, he still sends messages. Thank God for his messages when we're out of range. And now that the children of Israel are in range, verse 1 says, God speaks all of these words. God breaks through all of the silence of generations of slavery. And generations not of just slavery, hear me, but a systemized slave mentality. Their slave mentality has been inflicted upon them by the Egyptians until it becomes self-inflicted that would plague them now here in the wilderness. They were made to work 7 days a week making brick without straw. They had to work 18-hour days in the hot sun, without a break, without lunch, without benefits, without overtime pay, and still have the same productivity. I don't know about you, but if that was me, I would have revolted and started a mutiny. I don't do well in heat and humidity. That's why I came here to California. And you're making it harder for me to achieve my productivity. If I had time to preach this morning, I would tell you that if you are on a job where you are expected to reach a quota without the assistance to do so, then you are being oppressed. If I had time to preach, I would tell you that if you are salary or hourly, God sees the injustice of the work burdens that weigh you down when you can barely feed your family and pay your bills and can barely prepare for God's day, trying to make bricks without straw. They were oppressed by Pharaoh. Not only did they have to make bricks without straw, but they were symbolized in a burning bush in the desert that burned, but it didn't burn up. Never mind that they are a favored people due to the presence of Joseph, just a few generations before, where God used Joseph to save the Egyptian kingdom from famine. And Egypt prospered because of the presence of the descendants of Jacob. But the record says the more they oppressed them, the more they suppressed them, the more they repressed them, the Bible says the more they prospered. God is speaking to a favored people. Hear me, they prospered while they were slaves. And if they prospered while they were slaves, you better believe they will become a generation of inventors and innovators. Like I said, if I had time to preach, I would park parenthetically right here and say there are some people on your job and in your life. They've been trying to burn you, trying to push you down and trying to consume you because your presence threatens them. because they can't figure you out. They can't figure out how you're a minority and you're blessed, how you're broken but you're still blessed. God speaks to an enslaved people, but they're favored.